Friends, welcome. My name is Sebastian Langman Kirtley. I am a L'Oreal professional balayage artist. Welcome to my salon. I'm so excited to be here with you today to share some of my favorite tips and tricks with doing express French balayage, and also to share with you my new favorite lightening product from the Blonde Studio portfolio, Clay 7. And also give you a little teaser about some new innovation that is going to be out in July from L'Oreal Pro that will change the way that you color hair. So I think we should just get started. This is the look that I'm going to be creating on the left side of the head. I pre-did this mannequin yesterday, and essentially I will be just doing a service that is perfect for this time of the year when people don't want to go full on blonde yet. You know, balayage is extremely low maintenance as a service, and sometimes our clients come in and they don't really need that much. So this is a service that I can do completely in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's very, very effective for someone that wears their hair in a ponytail all the time. So I'm gonna get started here. So my first subsection, I'm starting in the front, and I'm taking a subsection from the mastoid, right behind the ear, to the temple. I am working with my favorite, Blonde Studio 7 Clay. I'm working with 20 volume developer. And my mixture is about 1 to 2. Now, the clay is actually formulated to go perfectly with freehand open air techniques. It is ammonia free, so it smells amazing, and the consistency of the product is just like a dream to work with. It has a great stretch, and I am using it like every day in the salon. I'm gonna move a little bit closer. And what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna paint the contour of the perimeter here. I'm working with a big brush. You can also do this with a smaller brush if you want to paint individual points on the hairline to leave a little bit more contrast, but I love this look because it is super, super soft, but you can really, really achieve a lot of effective lightness in a short amount of time. So I'm painting, I started in the middle of the shaft, which I call zone 2, and I just gently paint up to zone 1. I'm really, really just dusting this product on there, and I'm building up a little bit more and more as I'm going along. When I'm satisfied with the way that looks, a lot of the time I'll work in the mirror in the salon. Right now I'm working on my computer, so I'm kind of using that as a guide. When I'm satisfied with how that looks, I'll move down into the center of the hair. And now what I'm gonna do is lift the hair up, and I'm going to paint the underneath contour as well. So this is perfect for the client that wears their hair up in a top knot. It's excellent for someone that wants like a nice jaw framing piece, because the pieces that lie on top of the ear are the pieces that frame out here. And I know very few people with long hair that wear their hair back all the time. It's usually forward. So it's very important that we customize those looks for our clients' haircuts. I'm moving on here now that I've painted the perimeter on the bottom, and I'm coating very lightly the interior of the hair. So I'm actually painting 3 different planes of the head all in one shot. So you can see I could take 2, 3 subsections and do that, or I could do this at the same time. All the hair in the center is staying deep. And then what I'm gonna do here is to take the piece of hair, and I like to stick it to my brush. That's how I know there's enough product on there. Place it in the center of my planchette, and I just work it out through zone 3. And this is full saturation, so you really wanna make sure that you get in there and get that product in the hair. So I like to kind of go back and forth just to make sure those ends are nice and bright. Then I'll take a piece of 100% cotton batting, and I'm going to release this forward, and I'll show you how I do that. When you paint 3 different contours on the head, the hair is going to buckle over on itself. So it's really important to be mindful of the potential that it could actually fold over and create a hot spot. So our new clay lightener, as I said, is made just for working on freehand techniques. You can also use it to do a double process, like a bleach and tone, or you can use it in foil as well, which works really, really well. But it is specifically made for freehand French balayage techniques. So it is ammonia-free. You can mix it with the different Magi Creme developers. I'm using 20. You can use 30, 40. I'm going to also show you a curly technique for textured hair. And with that one, I actually just use 10 volume because a lot of the time textured hair is more porous. So your options are pretty versatile with this product. It is 19% clay. It has no polymers in it, and that is a major point of differentiation between this product and some of the other clay lighteners that are out there on the market. So now what I'm doing again is painting the front contour, working zone 2 middle to zone 1. So I'm going from a dry, yeah.
Hey, it's Heather from BTC. We have a couple questions rolling in. So I just wanted to ask you from Nikki on Facebook. She wants to know, what is the difference between foil and the cotton?
The difference between foil and cotton. So foil encapsulates the hair. It's a heat conductor. And the cotton is really there to protect the face and also to make sure that the lightener does not buckle over onto itself. Now, if you're newer at balayage, it's really, really a great idea to use cotton underneath each piece that you paint. But when you're great with saturation and you've got that mastered, a lot of the time I don't use cotton through the interior. So that would be the difference there. Now, this piece here, I'm actually going to paint through the top, but I'm not going to paint the bottom because I just painted a highlight there. So I'm not doing a back-to-back. Just face, frame, and interior. Moving on down here through zone 3, full saturation, and a little bit of cotton right there. So I want to tell you about a little giveaway that we've got going on. So in July, L'Oreal Pro is launching a brand new revolutionary innovation that's going to change the way that we color hair forever. It's called Metal Detox. I'll tell you a little bit more about it later, but that's the packaging. It's a purifying system that completely neutralizes any metal that's in the hair. It is 100% predictable as far as the color results go and leads to 87% less breakage in the hair. It's a 3-component in-salon system, and there is also an at-home regimen. All you have to do is ask some questions in that chat box, and you'll be entered to win a full set of it, and I cannot wait for you to try it because it's amazing. I was actually involved in the co-development of this product, so I've been using it for quite a while now, and I'm totally obsessed with it. I cannot even believe the results. My clients are loving it, and I can't wait for it to come out. So next up, we've got another subsection here, diagonally forward, and I'm going to the halfway point between the parietal ridge and the center. I'm working off a center parting here because, as we know, according to TikTok, anyone that doesn't wear a center part is old now. I guess that's me. So what I'm going to do here is just visualize how this piece is going to look, where I want to see that lightness. Now, there is totally an option to, if you choose, do this off root. You could do it at the same time with like a root drop or root shadow. You could do it at the same time while you're covering gray, like with a single process, or you can do it like this. So it's not strictly for brunettes. And with my texture technique, my sectioning is actually going to be very similar to this. I'm just going to go about it in a different way because you can use French balayage in so many different ways. It's really appropriate for so many different techniques. And I like to think of hair as like fabric, right? So you don't treat silk the way that you treat satin, and you don't treat satin the way that you treat cotton. So we are approaching the two different types of hair like different fabrics. So now I'm lifting up and away. I love over directing that hair back and away from the face because it allows me to access that hairline very easily.
Hey, Sebastian.
Yes.
We have a few questions. So is the product that you just showed, the Metal Detox, is that a pre-service for all color services or?
So yes, and it's also a post-service. One of my favorite things about Metal Detox is it does not add any time whatsoever to the surface. So it's different than a demineralizing treatment where you have to leave it on for a half an hour. Metal Detox is sprayed directly into the hair before the service. So this is typically in my salon. If this was my client, this is what I would do. If I was using Metal Detox, I would spray it in, mist it in section by section. A little bit goes a very long way. I section it, just comb it through, go to mix the color. By the time I've mixed the color, the product is dried into the hair. I paint right over it. It's actually a really nice texture to paint over, and it's also for any color brand. The product works while the color is processing, and then there is a dedicated shampoo which purifies the hair, and also a conditioner and a mask as well, depending on the type of hair you're working with. It literally takes no extra time, and it's very innovative because what has been discovered is that metal is contained in a very, very high percentage of the water in the world. I mean, some places it's up to like 85, 90%. And what they found is that metal lives in water frequently because water basically breaks down metal, and pipes are made of metal. So what happens then is the metal particles get in the hair. And it was thought that when metals and minerals got into the hair, that they just sat on the cuticle layer of the hair. But what was discovered is that metal actually gets into the cortex of the hair, and it just wreaks havoc because it does not get along well with color or lightener. It's actually the oxidant in the color and lightener that causes the issue. So basically, a molecule was developed called glycoamine, and that's been in development for 7 years. And the molecule is the only proven thing to go in and neutralize the metal particles. What they found is that it's a big problem and it causes breakage. I have had horror stories from my salon. There's a large content of metal in our water here in Massachusetts. I've had hair that steamed and processed in 5 seconds, and I had to wash it out fast. I've had glosses that were like a level 9, take it a level 4, because the unpredictable results are being caused by the interaction between the oxidants and the metal. I love this product because I'm a dedicated colorist. I'm a very, very creative person, and I don't like having to sit there and worry that if I'm doing like a dark golden blonde gloss on someone, that it's going to turn into a dark ash brown. It gives me creative freedom, and that's the freedom that I need to be able to do my job with confidence.
Amazing. And then with your lightener here, how are you applying it? How is your saturation, and what is your section size?
So my section size, I'm working in 1.5 inch subsections, all diagonally back away from the face. And my saturation here is, I'm using, starting in zone 2, it's all balayage. French balayage is all surface painting on the 2/3 of the hair that are closest to the root. And then the full saturation comes through zone 3. So I'm actually using different areas of my brush to paint different zones of the hair. This is all surface painting here. So as I'm going in through, I'm gonna try to get a little bit closer so you guys can see. As I'm going through towards the root, I'm actually angling my bristles a little bit down towards the hair at about 45 degrees from that subsection, and that allows me to dust that product on the root. I know it looks pretty dramatic because the product is very white and opaque looking, but with these large subsections, the results are actually super soft. So I'm working here up, and this is my money piece, so I'm gonna probably try to make this piece a little bit brighter. Tension is absolutely essential to being a master at French balayage. Without tension, you cannot paint evenly on a piece of hair. So my tension, I always hold that piece of hair at 45 degrees from the scalp, which is going to look different as you move around the head because the head is round. As I am working down, I'm dropping the elevation through zone 2, and by the time I'm at zone 3, I'm actually at natural fall, which is how the hair is gonna live when it's all blow dried and everything. But in this case where I'm painting in different elevations and directions, I'm actually altering my method slightly. So this is a little bit more advanced. I teach balayage classes. I've taught, all over the country. I've taught in France. And once you learn that basic French balayage methodology, you can really go on and get creative with it and break the rules. But it's very, very important to know like the basics of it before you move into full-on painting like this. Now you can also, I could be doing this with a smaller brush. I always like a brush with tapered bristles, but I use many different kinds. And in that case, I could paint some points on the head. So points are, I'll show you on this subsection, you can also do them with a larger brush as well. The points are gonna leave more negative space, and what negative space, it's basically the space between the highlights. It's gonna leave more negative space. So if I wanted to see depth here, I'm gonna make a V or a W. But in this case, this is going to give me the most effective surface lightening that I need to work quickly and effectively. So if somebody wants to be significantly lighter, I would work in this manner. I work on blondes this way a lot. So if you're just joining us, my name is Sebastian Langman Kirtley, L'Oreal Professional Artist, and I'm just doing some French balayage, very fast and effective application. And I am working with our new clay lightener, Blonde Studio Clay 7. And I'm having a blast here. I love doing balayage. It's been my focus for about 12 years now, and it just never feels like I'm actually working when I'm doing it. So this is a blast for me too. Now, see what happened right here? I've got this little lump. That's not a big deal. All I'm gonna do is I could take my comb, I could take a piece of cotton, and I'm gloved. So I'm just gonna take my finger here and knock that off. But if I left that, it would be a major issue in the way that the color turned out. So I love balayage open air because you can actually see what's going on with the hair. So if you see something that doesn't look right with balayage, when you're applying it, it's not gonna look right when it's all said and done. So
hey,
now, yes.
We have a question from Ayla on Facebook, and she wants to know, what is the difference between French balayage and traditional?
So French balayage, to me, French balayage is using traditional French methodology. That is working with plastic and cotton. I'm working with a planchette in this case. Sometimes I work off my palm as well, but it's really dedicated to the art of creating a customized, bespoke look for your client. So like I was saying, we have an expression at L'Oreal Professional, Frenchness. So Frenchness means quality, customized looks. And that kind of a thing really builds client loyalty. People throw around the term balayage a lot, and it has become a buzzword over the past few years, but balayage has actually been around since the 70s, and it originated in Paris. So French balayage, like you can create a balayage look by doing like teasy lights and a root shadow, and that's beautiful, it's fine, and it's great. But like, this is why I love the artistry of this, because you're using methodology and you're really working with the shape of the face. And I love that you can see it exactly how it's going to live within the haircut. So you can see there, I did a really big multi-point piece, but that's what I mean. If you want to leave a little bit more negative space, leave her a little bit rootier back here, you can do that too. So I'm wrapping up with my technique here. I'm just going to paint a couple pieces in the back. So, you know, a lot of the time my clients, they just come in for a surface painting, and a surface painting is, for me, it's the crown, the sides, and the top. It's everything you'd see when the hair is down. But, you know, then they go like this, and I've been wearing my hair up a lot. Can you just paint a few pieces on the bottom so it's not dark? And that's when I say, I don't have time to do a full. I'm thinking that. And what I say to them is, oh yeah, of course I can. So I don't take a bunch of little pieces. I take 2 subsections. I'm working from the other corner of the mastoid to the center here. And I'm going to paint this entire subsection as one in the same method that I used in the front of the hair. I always have my client lean down to accommodate what I'm trying to do. And this is kind of like, this is actually like backwards balayage. So it's a little bit tricky because you're working against gravity. So the tension and the smoothing of the hair is really, really important.
All right, we have another question from Kenya. She noticed when you lay the hair on the color board, are you applying bleach to that other side?
Yes, because I have a lot of product on here as well. It's just very important to keep that hair in the center of the planchette. So when I coat the hair, I'm adding more product like every 3 or 4 strokes that I apply, and my well of product is actually on here. So I am getting really, really good, strong saturation. So I'm painting here all the way up to the root, and I'm just feeling the hair out as far as like the tension goes. Where am I holding it so I can get it as tight as possible to the root? This is going to change with the hair texture, because if the hair is wavy or curly, it's going to immediately start to spring up when it gets wet, even if it's blown out. So very important when you're consulting with a client for the first time. If they come in with straight hair, I don't assume their hair is straight because a lot of people flat iron, a lot of people blow dry. So, you know, that consultation is really, really important, so I know what I'm getting into. So when I've painted the entire surface, and again, I'm kind of working a little blind here. So if I was in the salon, I'd probably be standing more to the front, but I want everyone to be able to see.
And what is the processing time for this application?
The processing time for this application, it's going to vary depending on the depth of the hair. Typically, what I book is 45 minutes to apply it, 45 minutes to process, and 45 minutes to finish. I work with assistants in my salon, so usually once I'm finished with my application, they take over. The Blonde Studio Clay will process for up to 50 minutes. It's a gorgeous lift. Half the time I'm not even toning it, but it's a slow and steady lift, so it's not a power lift. So for this, I would, you know, don't watch it and think that it's not processing, because it just takes a little bit of time to get going. We have another product called Multi-Techniques powder, and that's like a bulldozer. It works really fast. This is a little bit different. So I've painted the upper and lower contours of this hair, and this is actually a really important piece for modern color, because you see part of the face frame is the hair that falls here. So brightness here is going to come from this area as well. Anything over the mastoid, which is right here, and back to the nape, and in this area as well. Now for the next subsection, what I'm going to do to create a little bit of extra brightness, I'm going to take a 1/2 inch subsection parallel to the back hairline. And I'm just going to paint this as a veil. When I have a slimmer subsection like this, a lot of the time I can get it lighter, because I'm going to have more saturation running through.
What volume developer are you using?
I'm using 20 volume. I'm using 20 volume. So clay, you can use it with, I would recommend it with 20, 30, or 40 volume. For textured hair, you want to start lower because it's going to be probably more porous. So I'm just finishing up here, and full saturation. I did not paint the underneath of this piece. When you're working in big subsections like that, you want to, I like to check and make sure that I don't have color underneath there. So it's only on the last third of the hair that I've got that full saturation. I'll pick this up and hold her close so you can see exactly what I mean. So that's the underneath of the hair. So the top 2/3, zone 1 and 2, are completely surface, and then the ends are what is really, really saturated. So that's going to give it the most brightness. And if I start to overthink, because I don't know, hairdressers in general, we're kind of mental and we start to overthink things, I always go back to my plan, which is to make the hair look sun-kissed. And where is hair lightened in the sun? Around the face, on the ends, and on the contours. So that is my first technique. I just want you to see what she looks like when she's processing.
Awesome. And really quickly before you move on, we had Dora ask the question, how do you avoid bleeding and spotting?
So bleeding and spotting really comes from your tension, and the tension is majorly affected by the elevation of your piece. So when I'm doing traditional balayage, I'll show you just for example here. I know that if I paint at 45 degrees from the subsection, let me take a check mark here. Now I would typically do this with a smaller brush. I take a check mark here. And one thing you can do is to use cotton, right, to protect the underneath of the hair. But typically what I'll do is I'll take a bead of product, I start here, and notice my elevation here. So that's 90 degrees. Cut that in half, that's 45 degrees. So 45 degrees gives me the maximum amount of tension when I'm working towards the root, so in zone 1. Then as I am fanning my product out through the middle, I'm dropping my elevation. And then I'm lowering it all the way to the natural fall of the hair as I work over zone 3, the bottom of the piece, the sun-kissed part of the piece. So again, once you perfect that tension, you'll see there's no chance of bleeding. So the hair underneath is actually a cushion. But if you're starting out, a lot of the time tension is one of the last things to come, because the elevation, it's like muscle memory. You've got to learn how to do it. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, something clicks in, and then you get it. It's muscle memory. It's like riding a bike. You'll never forget. So she'll just have a random floating peekaboo light in the middle there. But what I'm going to do now is paint my textured hair. So very similar sectioning, but I'm going to work a little bit differently and adapt it for shorter hair and also for textured hair. So that's the top. You can see there will be a lot of depth between those pieces because I left so much space between my subsection. Negative space, when I refer to negative space, I'm just talking about the space between the highlights, and that's more important than the highlights themselves. So if you're just joining us, I'm talking about Balayage Studio 7 Clay, new innovation from L'Oreal Professional called Metal Detox. Again, folks, if you want to win Metal Detox, a set of in-salon treatments, all you have to do is ask a question in the chat box, and you'll be entered to win, and you're going to love it. So what I'm going to do here is a highlighting technique specified for textured hair. Now she is pretty curly, and I could adapt this in a few different manners to customize for the amount of curl that she has. She's not quite coiled because the hair's not in a Z pattern, but she's pretty curly and she has some ringlets. So we're gonna approach that a little bit differently. But as you can see here, it will still be low maintenance. I used clay lightener for this one as well. She only processed about a half an hour because the hair is more porous. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna work in zigzag sectioning. Zigzags are great because when you have zigzags, you're gonna be working diagonally forward and diagonally back in each piece, which illuminates different contours of the hair.
And Mary is asking, can you do a root melt with this technique with balayage?
Absolutely. Mary, do you mean doing one at the same time or doing one like after with a couple different tones? Because you can actually do either one.
Will you be toning your other model?
My other model, Erica, yes, I will tone her because I like all my mannequins to be pretty, but this product has a beautiful lift. But I love playing with our acid-based semi-permanent color, which is Dialite, so yes, I will be toning. So when you're working with curl like this, it's really, really important that the hair is tangle-free. So if the client wears their hair curly all the time, I really need to make sure that I'm stretching it out. I'm looking at the amount of spring that it has. And with my curly clients, I like them to come in no more than 2 days with very, very little product in the hair. So I'm gonna start by getting the hair that I've already colored out of the way. And I'm gonna work also in the front subsection, working from the top of the head to the mastoid. I'm also gonna clip this away. The back, it's really important that you stay organized when you're working with curly hair because it expands. So my elevation is gonna be a little bit different with this piece. And it needs to be really, really detangled enough that I can actually run my hands through it so I can work effectively. Now, one thing that I love doing is I love working effectively and efficiently. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna pre-section, taking, it would actually make a diamond on the top of the head, but I'm gonna take a diagonal forward subsection. I'm working in the left front quadrant. I'm going to clip that out of the way. When I'm doing pattern work and technique work like this, I like to section from the top down and apply from the bottom up. I'm gonna work again in a parallel subsection 2 inches wide. This will be my money piece. With curly hair, you might need to adapt it a little bit more for the money piece because the hair is not going to lie down flat. This dolly has kind of little bangles, I guess I would call them. So I might not put a piece right in the front there because I would want a little bit more depth there. And third subsection is going to just go from mastoid to temple. So it's exactly the same sectioning that I did on my first doll head.
And we have a question from Dana. Do you ever have your curly clients come in with straightened hair?
It depends on if they're curly and they wear their hair straight more, then I would probably work like that. But if they're curly and they wear it curly, I want them curly because I want to be able to see it the way that it actually lives on the head. I'm actually going to switch up my tripods here.
Perfect. And then we did have a couple questions about the Metal Detox.
Yes, please.
How is it different than a clarifying shampoo?
Well, a clarifying shampoo is basically just deep cleaning the hair. So Metal Detox goes into the cortex of the hair and neutralizes all of the metal deposits in the hair. Where a clarifying shampoo it's like a deep cleaning. And it's different than a demon or a demineralizing treatment because it's going to get into the cortex of the hair where that just washes away temporarily what's on the top. So diagonal back. Now what I'm gonna do here is to take a little tiny zigzag piece to make a little triangle right there. I'm going to clip this up and away, get that out of the way. Again, organized approach to this is really important. And I'm going to comb out that hair, and I'm going to take another check mark under my zigzag piece. And the reason for this is that curls taper at the end. So working in a diamond rather than a check mark shape is actually going to be more effective. Now I'm going to show you this first one the way that I do a palm painting, and I'm going to work the rest of it with my planchette. So a palm painting, you're working off of your hand. This is good for curls sometimes because you can actually mold the curl around your hand. I'm painting softly up to the root there, but my saturation is going to be a little bit stronger. Dry application is fine for looser curls, but when the curls are on the tighter side like this, it's going to curl up and bounce back into the root. So you need to be careful there. So I'm working in the same way here. I'm going to pick that piece up, and I'm just going to place it right over my palm. But in this case, what I'm doing is I am saturating fully top to bottom with the exception of a little shadow that I'm leaving out there in zone 1. So full saturation, because the curlier the hair is, the more pronounced you want that piece to be, because what happens is it looks dramatic when it's processing, but when you actually scrunch it up or twist it, when it dries, it disappears.
And how do you know that it's lifted enough?
Well, I'm aware of the color of this product. So it looks blue in the bowl, but it's actually white on the hair. So I like to scrape a little bit of that product off and then look at the underlying pigment of the hair that's remaining. So for example, if I want to lift her to a level 8, I'm going to look through the color of the lightener, scrape it off a little bit, and then I know from color theory that a level 8 is a yellow-orange underlying pigment. So I'm going to look for that color in there. When it's lifted to that yellow-orange, I know I'm at a level 8, so I know I'm at my goal. So I'm going to go back to my planchette painting here. I'm going to paint this one right on the hairline. But I'm actually painting forward on this one. I just feel like with her haircut, it's a little bit shorter and she's probably not going to wear it off of her face completely all the time. And again, placing my planchette all the way under the piece.
And Marilyn wants to know, do you apply less tension while working on curly hair?
I do apply less tension when working on curly hair. So the curlier the hair, the less tension I'm using because it springs back up. So if the hair's wavy, I'll still use enough tension. But in this case, my tension's a little bit looser because when that hair springs up, if there's dry brushing on it, it's gonna spring right back up into the root. And that's when I have to be careful of those hot spots.
Great. And then I think you touched on this earlier, but what is the reasoning for using plastic wrap versus foil?
For me, plastic wrap is great because I can see my placement very clearly. I like to stagger my pieces with balayage. With foil, I can't see that. Foil also is going to give you full saturation from top to bottom and roots to ends, which, you know, I have nothing against foiling. It's an art form. But for me, when I'm doing balayage, I like to be able to isolate the different zones of the hair so I can have softness here and then pronounced pieces through the ends without having to go back and do a root shadow. So I'm going through here and continuing up the head, I'm going to drop this subsection out. I'm going to alter this subsection slightly, make it a little bit wider. And again, I am going through, and to zigzag, I just draw on the hair like it's almost a pencil. So I'll do 2 zigzags here. And then clip this additional hair away. Now, a lot of the time what I do, just because I want to work effectively as possible, I'll take 2 zigzags and I'll paint them together at the same time. And I think one thing, coming back from the COVID shutdowns, clients don't always want to be in the salon for a long time. And also, you know, working with a lot of salons and starting to go back and do live education all over the place, a lot of us could not have more than 1 client at the same time. So it's really important to maximize our time. Everyone needs to make money, and also to make our clients feel as comfortable as possible. Clients do not want to sit in the salon all day. So all of the little things that I can do to maximize that time and get my clients in and out as quickly and effectively as possible, I'll do. So sometimes what I do is I just paint 2 or 3 pieces all at once. Now I'm coming up to my money piece here. I'm making this one a little bit bigger because I want it to be nice and pronounced. Now, if I wanted to, I could take these 2 pieces and I could paint them a second shade. If I had a root on at the same time, I could make this into a low light. We've got a lot of different options for the way that we paint. So if you're just joining us, we are doing French balayage on textured hair using amazing new Blonde Studio 7, clay-based. Love this stuff. Especially for curl like this, one thing that you need to be aware of with curl is that because if it's dark, does not mean that you have to use 30 or 40 volume on it. Absolutely have to take the porosity, the density, and the texture into consideration. I use 10 volume. A lot of the time, I'll use even 6 volume sometimes, depending. And if you're in doubt, have your client come in if it's a new person and do a strand test.
All right. And Haley is asking, what if you need to do different colors? Can you still use this technique?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, Haley, you totally can. You could use 2 or 3 different colors. I'm pretty sure that's going to be, you know, with the 90s coming back, I feel like the early 2000s trends are going to be coming any day now. And that is like, we had the cranberry and we had the platinum and we had the honey colors. So yes, you can certainly do that. I'm just rounding the top of the head now. And I'm going to drop this down. Drop my next subsection down. And here I might just freehand a few pieces. Just weave them out together. If you do tiny little pieces and you've got really, really tight curls in the hair, you're not going to see them at all. So it's important that they stay nice and chunky, because when the hair curls up, if you don't have enough highlight there, it's going to disappear. So finishing up here, and essentially with this technique, I would do the exact same thing underneath and in the back. Diagonal back subsections all the way up to the crown, just how I worked on here.
And is there a way to do this with gray coverage at the same time, or would that be 2 separate?
You can absolutely do it with gray coverage completely. One thing you just want to be careful of if you are doing balayage, and this is not just for curly hair, if you're doing balayage at the same time with gray coverage, you just want to make sure that the lightening product that you're using doesn't bump against the gray coverage product, because that would be, you know, we're depositing color to cover the white, and we're lifting away color with the lightening product. So you just have to be mindful of that. All right, so I'm gonna look here at her. I think I'm gonna paint one more piece up here.
And can you define the money piece section?
So yes, absolutely. The money piece, when we say the money piece is traditionally, it's the dominant, on the dominant side of the part. So my money piece, I don't have hair color, but my money piece goes that way. So it's the very front piece on the dominant side of the part, and it's usually the piece that people like to be the brightest because it frames the face. And you know, with center parts being in a lot, I still do money pieces with those, but I would probably make it slightly more subtle on each side. But I also have something that I refer to as like the money zone. So the money zone, for example, I'll show you on my other doll head. The money zone is going to go all the way between where the head changes shape off to the French section. It's going to go all the way from there, all the way to behind the ear. Because the money piece is like here, but the money zone is like here. So you can get very effective placement by concentrating your application through this area right here. Because look at where all of this hits. It's like here. So I love French balayage because you can totally customize anything with it. You can even do teasing at the root if you're not completely comfortable doing freehand. You can go a million different ways with it. So I want to thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for this live presentation of Blonde Studio Clay, French balayage, and Metal Detox. And I think that it's pretty amazing that even though we've all been physically apart during the pandemic, that we are still strong as a community digitally. And I can't wait to see you all in person at a class when we reopen our academies. So follow me on Instagram at Sebastian Colorist and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.